to wax and sculpt your posterior teeth, you will need the instruments from your removable kit, separating agent, and your sculpting wax, and you'll be ready to go. First, you want to apply a coating of separating agent to your opposing teeth so that the wax will not stick to the model and cause damage to your wax up. Begin the whole process by building up wax on your occlusal surfaces and continuously check with your opposing bite if your height is adequate simply by closing your articulator, and you will find that your opposing teeth will leave indentations in the wax. Continue the process building up wax, closing your occlusion until you find that your entire occlusal table of your teeth to be waxed up is completely filled and leaves nice indentations from your antagonists. Once the occlusal table is built up, you move on to building the buccal surfaces of each tooth, and by having your articulator closed, you will have an easier time creating the right dimensions and the right overjet and overbite of upper to lower teeth. Once your occlusal table and your buccal surfaces have been built up with wax, use your small carving instrument and start defining each tooth individually, and you can use the teeth from the opposing portion of your arch as a template simply by following all those landmarks that you will need to find on your waxed up teeth. Throughout the entire process of sculpting and carving, it's important that you look at your wax up from different angles so that you can identify areas where you need to add or reduce wax so that your teeth that you're sculpting match the teeth of your opposing quadrant of the same arch. You will find it will make your work go a lot easier if you start separating your teeth into individual surfaces by indicating the interproximate surfaces, and clear the wax around the free gingival margins so that you can see the shape developing as you go. Take your time sculpting each individual tooth, and make sure that when you create your interproximate surfaces and your shapes along the free gingival margin that you compare with the other side of the arch, you can create your cusp tips and your interproximate ridges simply by following the example of the other side. Next step would be that you create your lingual surfaces, and you go about it the same way you did with the buccal surfaces. Build up each individual tooth so that you have control over the amount of wax you need. You either need to add or reduce to match the other side of the arch. Take your time with this and make sure that your instrument is hot so that the new wax that's being added will properly bond to the underlying wax layers that you already have. The next step would be that you start carving free the free gingival margins, and by doing so you will be able to identify the divisions between each tooth, and you can carve your interproximate surfaces on the lingual, and you do this one tooth at a time so that you can keep control over your dimensions and your shape. Now that you've created your lingual surfaces, you can move on to creating your cusps by dividing lingual and buccal cusps and mesial and distal cusps. Always follow the example of your opposing side of the arch so that you have identical shapes as much as you can possibly create. Then we will move into the buccal surfaces where we have to create the same divisions between the cusps, same as we did occlusally. And you will see the anatomy of each tooth emerging more and more as you define the different surfaces. Use calipers to measure your dimensions from one side of the arch to the other so that your wax up is not going to be smaller or larger than the natural teeth. You will find that you continuously switch between each of the 4 teeth that you have to carve, and you compare with the other side of the arch to find your landmarks and to create the proper dimensions and shapes. And you will always go from one tooth to the next because you see something that doesn't quite fit, and going back and forward will help you to create an overall accurate picture. Using the bristle brush will help you to get rid of any kind of carving residue, and it also polishes the surface of the wax ever so slightly, making certain anatomical features pop more, and it helps you to see what you need to do or what you have created already. And over go back with the calipers, compare one side to the other to make sure that your dimensions are correct. Use your bristle brush to remove any kind of debris from your teeth. It will also help polishing the surface of your wax ever so slightly, making certain details pop a little bit more so you can see what you need to do. And as always, go back and check your dimensions. Your small carver, create some of those bifurcations on each cusp. And once you've done that, you use the opposite side of your carving instrument and define those lines. Create fissures and fossas between each cusp and between each one of the landmarks that you need to create an anatomically correct occlusion. part of that accuracy is that your central fossas line up from one tooth to the next. And the last step will be that you use your micro torch and gently glaze the surface. That will give it a nice glossy finish, make all the details anatomy pop, and you will have a very nice professionally looking wax up. Make sure that you check your dimensions before you hand this in for viewing to make sure that all your dimensions are right, that your size and your proportions are correct, and put it on the articulator to ensure that overbite and overjet to the antagonists are correct. And you want to do this from the buccal view as well as the lingual view.